Welcome to a story that begins far from the skyscrapers of New York City. A story born under the golden African sun, carried through the crowded streets of Queens, and destined to echo through the halls of power. This is not just the story of a politician. It's the story of a man who turned struggle into strength and conviction into change. A man who redefined what leadership could mean in a world drowning in ambition and greed. From the heart of Kampala, Uganda, where his parents once fled dictatorship, to the bustling borough of Queens where dreams met reality. This is the journey of Zohran Mamdani, a name that now stands for hope, courage, and an unyielding belief in equality. He didn't inherit power, he built it. He didn't seek fame, he earned trust. And when the world told him he couldn't belong, he chose not to listen. He chose to fight. Today, as the newly elected mayor of New York City, Zohran's story is no longer just his own. It's a reflection of every immigrant, every worker, every believer who dared to dream of a city that truly belonged to its people. Because sometimes, one man's voice can awaken a generation, and one story can reshape a nation. Part 1. The Roots of a Dream. In the vast, restless city of New York, where millions chased dreams under the same skyline, a child was born whose story would one day redefine what leadership meant. His name, Zohran Mamdani. Born on October 18, 1991, his arrival was quiet, but his destiny was anything but ordinary. Zohran's story did not begin in the concrete jungles of Manhattan. It began decades earlier, across oceans and continents, in the dusty lanes of Uganda and India, where his ancestors once lived, and in the sun-drenched streets of Kenya, where his father grew up. His family had known exile and displacement. His grandparents had seen their homes taken, their citizenship questioned, and their lives uprooted. Yet they carried something stronger than bitterness. Hope. That hope flowed into his father, Mahmoud Mamdani, a brilliant scholar of history and politics, and his mother, Mira Nair, a filmmaker known for her courage to tell untold stories. Together they built a home where art met intellect, where books replaced toys, and where empathy was as essential as air. From his earliest years, Zohran grew up surrounded by stories. Stories of migration, of identity, of injustice, and of survival. His mother often said, "Cinema can change hearts," while his father would remind him, "And politics can change lives." Those two ideas would one day merge within him, to form a purpose that neither fame nor fortune could corrupt. Growing up in Queens, Zohran lived in the beating heart of immigrant New York. The languages of the world echoed down the street: Urdu, Spanish, Bengali, Arabic, Greek. The smell of food from a dozen cultures filled the air. It was chaotic, crowded, imperfect, and yet it was home. He watched his neighbors struggle to pay rent, saw taxi drivers return at dawn after 14-hour shifts, and heard the quiet fears of families living paycheck to paycheck. While others saw a city of opportunity, Zohran saw a city that demanded survival. It made him question why some people's dreams came true while others never stood a chance. At school, he was sharp but humble. He didn't talk much, he listened. He noticed how students from poorer families were left behind, how teachers tried to do more with less, and how silence became the language of inequality. By the time he graduated, Zohran knew he wanted to understand systems, the hidden machinery that decided who thrived and who suffered. So he studied economics at Bowdoin College, not to become rich, but to learn how money moved, how policies worked, and how injustice was often disguised as efficiency. But theory was never enough for him. After graduation, while many of his peers joined corporate firms, Zohran chose something different. He became a housing counselor in Queens. He walked into small apartments with leaking roofs, met tenants facing eviction, and listened to their stories of despair. Every document he filed, every protest he attended, every home he saved from being taken away, deepened his conviction that real change doesn't begin in offices. It begins on the streets. Little did he know, those very streets would one day carry his name. By 2018, New York was changing fast, and not for the better. Rents were skyrocketing. Developers were pushing out old residents. Working families were barely hanging on. And as Zohran watched politicians make empty promises on TV, something inside him broke. He realized that waiting for justice was not enough. He had to fight for it. That year, a seed took root, small, fragile, but determined. He would run for office. Part 2, the battle for Queens. Politics was never meant for people like Zohran. He had no wealthy donors, no political connections, no famous last name. What he had was authenticity, and a community that trusted him. When he announced his campaign for New York State Assembly District 36, people laughed. Some said, "You're too young." Others warned, "You'll never beat the system." But Zohran didn't care about the odds. He cared about the people, the tenants, the taxi drivers, the immigrants who made Queens what it was. His campaign headquarters wasn't a fancy office. It was a small room filled with folding tables, old laptops, and hand-drawn posters that read, "Homes for all, and dignity can't wait." Volunteers came from every corner. Students, mothers, delivery workers, grandfathers. They brought food, flyers, and hope. Zohran rode his bicycle through neighborhoods, knocking on doors, talking to strangers, asking them not for money, but for belief. Each conversation, each handshake, each smile built something stronger than politics. It built trust. His message was simple. Politics should serve people, not power. And the people of Queens listened. By the summer of 2020, his campaign had become a movement. At rallies, he didn't speak like a politician. He spoke like a neighbor. He told stories of eviction, of poverty, of courage. He didn't promise miracles. He promised effort. And for the first time, the people believed someone truly meant it. Election night arrived like a storm. The old political establishment was confident they would crush him. But as the ballots were counted, the tide shifted. One neighborhood after another, Astoria, Ditmars, Steinway, all turned red with hope. And when the final numbers came in, the impossible had happened. Zohran Mamdani had won. In that small office in Queens, the cheers were deafening. Tears flowed, hands trembled, hearts swelled. He stood before his supporters and said quietly, "This victory isn't mine. It's ours. It belongs to everyone who never gave up on this city." The newspapers called him the socialist from Queens, but the people called him something else, one of us. From that moment, he became a symbol of a new kind of politics, one built not on power, but on purpose. Part 3, the People's Mayor. At the State Assembly, Zohran faced his toughest battles yet. He pushed for rent control, for affordable housing, for better public transport, for immigrant rights. Lobbyists hated him. Some colleagues mocked him. But he refused to bend. He knew who he was fighting for. The workers who built the city but could no longer afford to live in it. His days were long, his victories small, but each step mattered. And as his name grew, so did his influence. Soon, people began whispering, "What if he ran for mayor?" At first, Zohran laughed. He said, "I'm just a kid from Queens." But New York was tired of empty speeches. It wanted honesty. So in 2025, he made the announcement. He would run for mayor of New York City. The campaign was electric. Crowds gathered wherever he went. Construction workers, artists, taxi drivers, mothers with strollers. He spoke not about power, but about people. He said, "This city belongs to all of us. The billionaires don't own New York. We do." Election night, November 5th, 2025. The results flashed across every screen. And then it happened. History was made. Zohran Mamdani, son of immigrants, advocate of the poor, was elected mayor of New York City. The city erupted in joy. Fireworks lit the sky above Queens. People chanted his name from windows and sidewalks. And when he took the stage outside City Hall, he said softly, "This is not a victory of one man. This is the victory of millions who refuse to be silent." On January 1st, 2026, he took his oath as New York's first South Asian mayor. He promised to rebuild trust, restore dignity, and return power to the people. And as the sun rose that morning over the city's skyline, a new chapter began. A chapter written not by politicians, but by people. Because sometimes, the quiet voice from Queens can awaken the conscience of an entire city.